Hey, what's up everyone? The Dan Sandwich here, back again with another NBA 2K22 video, and I am picking up again at my series where I deleted the entire NBA, filled it with randomly generated creative players, and then started re-simulating an entire history of a new league. Um, I am 21 years into the future now because I accidentally did 11 years in the last video. Um, but this is where the NBA is at right now. So as you see, these are all the best players currently in the NBA. Number one up here is Patrick Starks, who I see as a free agent this offseason. So that's interesting. But he is very interesting because he won the last two MVPs and he also won the last championship. So he could be potentially the next great player in this league. And then we also have Curtis Whitehead. He's been around for a little while. He's had a couple MVPs under his belt, but he's never had any postseason success. And then you've got Abe Morris, who, he's been around a little bit now as well. Junior Cardinal, I think he's a former Rookie of the Year as well. So you got some guys like kind of on the upcoming here. A couple of guys who are like 25 years old, about to reach their peaks and things like that. And then some guys who've been around the league for a little bit longer. But in the last video, we had some of the guys that have been around since the beginning of this league reach the Hall of Fame, and things like that. So this video, I'm gonna do 9 seasons into the future, so we can keep it like at the 10-10-10. And then we'll see where everything goes right there. But this is the guy to watch right here, Patrick Starks, because 2 MVPs under his belt already. He's already won a championship. So he's got a very bright future ahead of him as well. So let's see where we're at the beginning of season number 22. Yeah, 22. I'm gonna like keep track this time of where I'm at, because last time I lost track. This time I'm gonna keep better track of where everything's at. As usual, I'm gonna skip to the NBA draft because I want to see what quality of players are entering this league. So not a crazy draft here. Nobody even 80 overall yet, which I guess that's fairly normal. At least in real life, you probably get some guys that are like entering the NBA at a reasonably high level. But yeah, nothing really crazy there. All right, moving into player progression, and Patrick Starks stayed with the Warriors. He was probably a restricted free agent, but he only moved up 1 overall point. So that's interesting. And Curtis Whitehead is starting to decline a little bit. So yeah, his reign might be coming to an end as Starks rises up the ranks there. But yeah, let's move on to the next season, and I'll see how things shake up at the end. All right, so I just said at the beginning of this video that Abe Morris hasn't really done anything yet, and there he goes, and he wins MVP. So good on him. Jared Dudley is the coach of the year. That's crazy. So in 21 seasons, I guess he goes on to become a pretty good coach. That's kind of funny. Let's move on to the All NBA teams, and our guy Starks is nowhere to be seen on here, which is surprising. The Warriors did finish. There he is. Okay, they did finish with the best record in the Western Conference. So they still had a pretty good season, obviously, but couldn't beat Terrence Blair or Abe Morris apparently. But it's all right. He's already got his individual awards. He got 2 MVPs already. He's going to be looking for more championships in the future here. All right, then speaking of Abe Morris, he's on the Nuggets, and they were the second best team in the Western Conference. Yeah, so they were the second best team in the Western Conference. So maybe they'll square off in the NBA Finals. Let's see. Let's simulate the playoffs and see who ends up with the title this year. Another championship for the Golden State Warriors. So that's 2 in a row for Patrick Starks there. And he faced off against Abe Morris in the Western Conference Finals. It went to 7 games, and the Warriors ultimately won. Patrick Starks gets another Finals MVP. So that's 2 Finals MVPs, 2 regular season MVPs, and 2 championships for Patrick Starks. Let's go to the NBA draft again and see who ends up being in there. All right, so here's a guy that we should probably keep an eye out for. It's Bradford Berry. That's a fun name to say. But his ceiling is Kevin Durant, Hall of Fame. He's only 19 years old, coming in at a 78 overall, so not a super high starting rating. But his ceiling is very, very high, and he's still pretty young. So that's maybe a guy we should look out for. So Patrick Starks has already plateaued, it seems like. It's a 94 overall, not progressing any further there, which is a little surprising. At the start of the 2043 season, and Patrick Starks is still the best player in the NBA right now, followed up by former MVP Abe Morris. Curtis Whitehead continues to drop. So this guy, he had his time in the NBA. He's still a very good player, still the fourth best player in the NBA right now, but he's starting to slowly decline. This guy is interesting. So he's only 22 and he's an 86 overall already. He was the second overall pick in the draft from 2 years ago. So he's an interesting guy to look out for as well. But yeah, as you can see, there's a couple guys like that are really, really good, and then everyone else is just solid. You know, I mean, an 80 overall guy is going to be a really good player, but maybe not a dominant one. So it's kind of interesting that the NBA started off with not a whole lot of good players, and then we got maybe 5 or 6 really awesome players, and then they kind of trickle out, and now we only have like 2 guys that are really dominant. So that's kind of interesting. A little bit mirrors the real life NBA, because like in the early 80s, you really only had a couple of guys that were dominant, and everyone else was just like solid. So I wonder if we'll see, our version of a Michael Jordan or somebody like that come into the NBA and really light everything on fire. That's kind of funny how it's a little bit mimicked real life in that respect. So let's see to the end of this season, and I'll see you guys in the playoffs. Just like that, the guy that I said we should be looking out for, Zach Sims, comes up and wins MVP. That's crazy. So he's another guy we should be keeping an eye out for, because he's obviously going to be really, really good already, off to a great start. And then there's Bradford Berry, the guy that I was saying that would be an interesting rookie to look at. He wins Rookie of the Year. So these 2 guys might become the future of this league. Patrick Starks is back on the All-NBA first team. The Warriors were the second team in the West this season. Abe Morris is injured, but he's still good enough to be on the second team All-NBA. And speaking of Abe Morris, his Denver Nuggets are the 1 seed in the West. So that's interesting. And then you can see Zach Sims' Milwaukee Bucks are the number 2 seed in the East. And then Toronto, they were a dominant team for a really long time. The closest thing I think we've had to a real dynasty so far. They're the number 1 seed in the East again. So a lot of guys that we've seen before, a lot of teams we've seen before, still here, still hanging around. And Curtis Whitehead, man, that guy has not had any postseason success whatsoever. So that's really, really interesting. But let's simulate the playoffs and see where we're at in the NBA Finals. Oh, man, all right. So the Warriors get to the Finals again, but then they lose to the Raptors. So the Raptors, man, they've got 4 championships already, I think, in this simulation. So really, really interesting. Kind of reminds me of like the San Antonio Spurs, because yeah, like again, every time they win, they've got a guy like in the low 80 overalls as the Finals MVP. So they must just have like a really good overall team. So the Warriors making it to the Finals again, so that's 3 times in a row. Pretty good, even if they don't win. Still a pretty good turnout for them. Let's go back to the NBA draft and see if there's anybody else that we need to be keeping an eye out for. Yeah, as you can see here, not a really strong draft. We got a guy drafted 4th overall who's only a 71. So this might be one of the weaker drafts we've seen so far. So I don't know. We may not be getting a superstar out of this one. Let's jump to next season and see how everyone stacks up. All right, at the beginning of 2044, Patrick Stark's still the best player in the league. And then you have Abe Morris is still up here as well. And then here is kind of the up-and-comer Zach Sims, kind of on the way up. Yeah, so Bradford Berry jumped up only 4 overall points, which is still pretty good. Like that 4 or 5 is about the most you'll see anyone jump up in any one season. So that's good for him. So yeah, we're still going to be keeping an eye out on Patrick Starks. This is the last year of his deal, so he's going to become a free agent at the end of this season unless they give an extension. So that'll be interesting to see if he does leave. What happens to the Warriors, because he's really the reason why they've been so successful so far. And then, just out of curiosity, I want to take another look at the Raptors lineup, see how they've been winning so many championships. Here's the Raptors. They won the championship last year. Now, I don't know what happened in the offseason. They might have lost some guys, but like, this is a championship level team in this simulation. So that's always interesting to look at. But yeah, let's see the end of this season, and then I'll see you guys in the playoffs as well. All right, here we go. Zach Sims wins his second MVP award in a row. So we've got another guy who's definitely going to be, a star in this league. As you can see, the Warriors didn't even make the playoffs this year. They were actually the worst team in their conference somehow. So I'll have to look into that. Maybe Starks got injured or something like that. But that's really interesting. Yeah, he must have gotten injured because he's not even on any of the All-NBA teams, despite being the best player in the NBA. Denver and Abe Morris didn't even make the playoffs either, so that's interesting as well. This might be Zach Sims' league now already. That's crazy. Let's see the playoffs and see how they stack up. If Zach Sims can lead his team to the championship already early in his career. Good. So far, so good. And yeah, okay, so Zach Sims, he's going to be the finals MVP. 4-0 sweep of the Trailblazers in the finals. The Trailblazers were another team that was always really good in the regular season. And then I'll have to double check. I don't know if they won a championship at all, but they were always up there in the standings and then didn't really make it that far in the playoffs. Again, I'm going to check to see what happened with Starks last season. Yeah, he only played 25 games last season, so that's why they were so bad. But that, it'd be interesting to see if that helps them in the draft. So like maybe he can get another star to go along with him, and they can, recover and become a really good team next year. Not dissimilar to the real life Golden State Warriors with like Steph Curry when he got hurt that one season, and then they went and got James Wiseman in the draft. Although he hasn't really panned out so far. So that's kind of interesting as well to see how the simulation imitates life in that respect as well. All right, speaking of the draft, here we are at the end of the draft, and we see the Wizards. They got a guy who's an 81 overall already. It has a Hall of Fame ceiling, so that's really interesting. And then the Warriors got the 4th pick. Who's this guy? All right, so he could be a solid player, but nothing amazing there. Looks like this might have been a 1-player draft, really. Yeah, because everyone else is kind of just okay. Oh, wow, okay. So, like I said, I was saying Starks was a free agent at the end of last season, and I guess having a really bad losing season was enough for him to walk. So I wonder where he went. Let's see. So he is on the Pistons now, and he's starting to regress a little bit. So that's interesting in both ways. Their team is a little okay. That kind of sucks. Their top 4 players, they all play the same positions. So that sucks. I'm not gonna meddle here. If I was meddling, I would make him a small forward to really amplify his success. But I'm gonna say hands off and hope that their coach figures it out. But yeah, this guy, he had a really great start to his career. Made a couple of finals as well. 2 MVPs, 2 championships. But that I don't know. I hope that he finds success in Detroit, but their team does not really look like it's outstanding. But hey, neither were the Raptors. They won a championship. Won a couple of championships. So yeah, who knows? But I think I'm gonna start following around Sims on the Bucks now and see what he can do, because he's already off to a great start. He's only 23 and he's already got 1 championship, 2 MVPs. So kind of the exact same spot that Starks was in when I started this video. So that's also interesting. All right, here we are at the start of the 2045 season, and here's how everything looks right now. Starks is still the best player in the NBA, but not by much, because Zach Sims is right behind him, and Abe Morris is still up here. And then yeah, we got a couple other guys that are on the coming up. Bradford Berry is the other guy to look at. He hasn't really ascended quite as quickly as guys like Starks and Sims did, but he's still a really good overall player. So yeah, let's see. You know, again, imagine like getting the new NBA 2K game and the best player in the NBA is only a 92 overall. um, like if 2K23 comes out and like Giannis is only a 92, that'd be really funny. But that's where we're at right now. This is what the league looks like. That's what's going on. So yeah, let me simulate the end of this season, and let's see how the Bucks do with Zach Sims. Zach Sims gets his third MVP award. I think he might be the first player in this history to have won 3 MVPs. I'll have to double check that because it seems like a lot of players have won 1 or 2, and then they'll kind of fall off pretty quickly after that. But he has continued to be just an amazing player in the NBA. And again, like look at the stats there, like 21, 6, and 6. Not amazing stats. So like the quality of the league has definitely decreased quite a bit again. But you know, that's what happens. It just depends on the quality of the players coming in. But the Bucks were the #1 seed in the East as well. Bradford Berry is a first-team All-NBA player, so that's exciting. Yeah, and once again, Patrick Starks didn't even make an All-NBA team. So maybe he got injured again. Maybe he's just going to become injury-prone later in his career and never get back to where he was before. So that'd be really sad to see. Yeah, and then Denver was a play-in game with Dave Morris. Okay, but Detroit is right here. So Detroit is still up here. So they must have been good enough. But I don't know. Maybe he didn't still... maybe it was more of a team play instead of more individual play from him. But let's simulate the playoffs, see if Sims can't get another championship under his belt. So the Bucks got eliminated again by Toronto, and Toronto wins another championship. My goodness, dude. And it's like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, how is this team so dominant? They got a guy who is a 78 overall. He only started 2 games in the finals, and he is the finals MVP. That's crazy. I don't get it. I really don't get it. Like, why is this team so dominant? I don't know. Let's see, we have another Hall of Famer this year. Stephen Wood and Kenneth Dennis. Remember this guy? He was a guy that was supposed to be like the next best player, I think. He might have won... Did he win any awards in his time? Yes, he was just a lot of all-star appearances. No like MVPs or anything like that. And then Stevie Woods, he was a 5-time MVP. Is that right? How did I forget that? What teams did he play on? Oh yeah, this guy was... Okay, yeah. All right, so this was like the GOAT for a long time. That's right, he won 5 MVP awards. He never won a championship though. He was always like a regular season guy. How did I forget about Stevie Woods? Yeah, he was like the star of these videos for a while. 5 MVPs. So Zach what's his name? Zach Sims has got some room to work with here to get onto his level. But yeah, he was the best player in the NBA for a long time and won a lot of MVPs. So obviously, yeah, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Into the NBA draft, and we got another guy who is drafted in as an 80+ overall with a ceiling of Hakeem Olajuwon. So this might be where the league starts to pick back up. We got a couple of drafts in a row where we got guys with really high ceilings and really high starting ratings coming into the league. So that'll be interesting to see. So starting the 2046 season, let's see where everything's at the beginning of that year. All right, at the beginning of the 2046 season, and we still got these 2 guys at the top. He's not progressing any further, it looks like. So he's going to stay at 91. But with the state of the league, that's good enough, honestly. Abe Morris is still up here. We got Bradford Berry coming up slowly again. He's at an 89 overall now, which is good enough to be 4th in the NBA right now. So yeah, let's see. You got a guy named Kenny Swift, who seems like a pretty solid up-and-comer as well. So yeah, we'll see what happens here. If Zach Sims can continue to be the best player in the NBA. Again, like, you know, Things are starting to improve steadily here. We got a bunch of guys in the 85 and up club, but kind of peters off after that a little bit. We haven't had a single 99 overall yet. I think the best we've had so far was a 95 overall. That's also interesting. We haven't seen anyone reach the pinnacle of what you can do in 2K. So that's kind of interesting. All right, Zach Sims gets MVP number 4. Bucks are first in the conference and the power rankings again. All NBA first team. We got Bradford Berry up here with Zach Sims. And then a couple guys we haven't seen up here, or at least not that I recognize. Daniel Watkins is an 81 overall All NBA first team player. Let's take a look at the playoff bracket after the play-in. And Detroit is still here. Denver is still here. So a lot of the guys we've seen up here already are still hanging around. But, let's see what happens at the end of the playoffs. There we go. Zach Sims wins his third NBA championship. So 4 MVPs, 3 championships. Pretty good start so far. So he is really making a case for the best player of all time for this iteration of the NBA. Yeah, and once again, we don't have a super exciting draft this year. So, the NBA might still be looking for that next big talent. Here we are at the start of the 2047 season, and, Starks, while he started to slow down a little bit, he's still stayed at the 91 overall club for a while now. While Sims, it seems like that's where he peaks. But again, that's still good enough for the best in the league. And then we have these two guys right here, Kenny Swift and Bradford Berry, that are slowly climbing up to the top of the league here. Abe Morris is still up here, hanging around at 90 overall. He's been there for a while. So yeah, things are getting a little bit more interesting. So while we may not have the highest of peaks in this league, it seems like there's a consistent level of talent for a lot of the way throughout the league. So that's interesting. But yeah, Zach Sims, he is definitely having maybe the best career we've seen overall, both with individual success and team success. So okay, that's only his second championship. I thought he won another one at some point. But still, that's more than a lot of these MVP winners have had. Again, we've seen guys like Stevie Woods, for example. He had 5 MVPs and no championships at all. So that's really interesting to see that happen. And then there's again, Tim Jamison, for example, he never won MVP at all. He was the best player in the NBA for a really long time. Never won MVP, never had any team success either. So yeah, I mean, this is probably the best we've seen of both individual and team success since I've been doing this series of videos. We got a first-time MVP here, Darnell Cross. He has been in the top 10 NBA rankings for the last couple of seasons, kind of on the way up. Again, not crazy MVP numbers there. I mean, 18 and 12 is pretty solid, but that's maybe more all-star numbers in real NBA than it is MVP numbers. But maybe he led the Wizards to a really great record. I don't know. So Bradford Berry gets another All-NBA first-team selection. So does Kenny Swift. And then Patrick Starks is back on the All-NBA second team. And Zach Sims looks like he was injured for a while. So maybe that's why he didn't get another MVP. Hopefully he's ready to go in the playoffs. I mean, they still finished with the best record in the East. But that could really hurt their chances of winning another title. The injury did not slow Zach Sims or the Bucks down at all. They only lost 3 games the entire playoffs, and they win another championship. And he wins another Finals MVP. So yeah, he's really rolling now. So that's 3 championships for him, along with his 4 MVPs. And maybe if he didn't get injured, he might have won another MVP. Yeah, another really disappointing looking draft. That's a real shame. Here we are at the start of the 2048 season, and Kenny Swift has surpassed Zach Sims as the best player in the NBA. He's a 92 overall already at 24 years old. So that's exciting. We could see another guy potentially become a really great player. But Zach Sims is still doing his thing. He's a 91 overall still, and so is Patrick Starks. So even though he's definitely slowed down, he's definitely not bad by any reasonable stretch of the imagination. We got Mac Ewing up here at 90 overall club as well. And then Abe Morris has started to peter off there at 89. Bradford Berry looks like he might have peaked already at 89 overall. But as we've seen, that's enough to win, to win in this league at that rating. So yeah, and then got Darnell Cross here, who was the MVP last season. He's only an 87 overall, which again is still good for like top 10 in this simulation. But yeah, Kenny Swift will be a guy to definitely keep an eye out for to see how he progresses. All right, Zach Sims joins Elite Company with Stevie Woods as being the only 5-time MVP in the history of this league. Yeah, so Zach Sims, Stevie Woods, Michael Jordan, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar are the only ones with 5 or more MVPs, which is kind of crazy. Kenny Smith is still here on the All-NBA first team. No surprise there. Patrick Starks still hanging around. He's on the All-NBA second team, as well as Darnell Cross. Bucks still the best team in the Eastern Conference, best team in the power rankings as well. Still cruising along there. Memphis is the second overall team in the West, and they have Kenny Swift, who is like the next up and coming player as well. But we still have Zach Sims dominating the league as well. Let's see what happens here in the playoffs. Looks like they're in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they lost the Miami Heat. So that's surprising. And then the Warriors win the championship behind Mikhail Enqvist. That's a interesting one. 85 overall. So yeah, okay. That's a little surprising there. We haven't seen them in the playoffs for quite some time. Let's see who made it to the Hall of Fame this year. There's Curtis Whitehead. So he was one of the guys who was the best player in the NBA for a really long time. Won a couple MVPs, if I remember correctly. But his team never did anything in the playoffs. He rarely made the playoffs. Sometimes made the play-in, but got knocked out. But he never had any team success in the NBA, which is crazy, considering he was one of the best players for a really, really long time. Here we go. We got an 82 overall already. Not as high of a ceiling, not like a Hall of Fame ceiling, but still All-NBA. He could be a really, really good player, and then the rest of this draft is just trash. Here we are at the start of the 2049 season, and Kenny Swift is still the best player in the NBA for the second year in a row. Zach Sims is still up here. Alexei Clayton, so this is a name we haven't seen up here so far. He's interesting. Mac Ewing is still here. Bradford Berry looks like he's kind of plateaued as well. And then there's Patrick Starks, still one of the best players in the NBA, but nowhere near where he was before. So yeah, we might be seeing a new era with Kenny Swift on the way up, and Alexei Clayton, 91 overall at the age of 23 is pretty exciting. Here we go again. Zach Sims really cementing his claim for the best player in the history of this NBA with his 6th MVP award. Just crazy. So the 3 best players in the NBA are all in the All-NBA first team, as they should be, with Kenny Smith, Zach Sims, and Alexei Clayton. And the Bucks are still the best team in the Eastern Conference. There's Memphis with Kenny Smith and the 5th seed in the West. So that's interesting as well. But yeah, let's get through the playoffs and see if Sims can win another title after his 6th MVP. And there we go. The Bucks take the championship back from the Warriors, who also made the NBA Finals as well. And there's Zach Sims with another Finals MVP. So yeah, this guy has definitely become the best player of this iteration of the NBA, for sure. So we got another season here. This will be the last of this video, because it'll take us to 2051. Let's see what we look like at the beginning of this season. So we got another guy here in the NBA draft with a ceiling of Kevin Durant Hall of Fame. So that's interesting. But his floor is Doug McDermott. So like, imagine being like, you could be Kevin Durant or you could be Doug McDermott. So again, another like high risk, high reward player there. Other than that, again, not a crazy draft here. But yeah, I don't know. This will be the last season for this video. Let's see where everyone is at. Best players in the NBA, and things are getting a little bit more crowded at the top, with Swift, Clayton, and Sims, with Ewing up here. Bradford Berry, this is the guy that we thought was going to be one of the best players, and he still is, but he hasn't really reached that really high peak like these guys have. All right, so here we are at the end of the 2051 season. Yep. Alexi Clayton is the MVP. His first MVP award. So good for him. Zach Sims gets Defensive Player of the Year. So he doesn't get MVP this year, but he does win Defensive Player of the Year, so that's really cool. And then Quinn Jeffries, this was the #1 overall pick last year. He wins Most Improved Player. So a couple really interesting storylines to follow here, moving into the future from here. But good stuff so far. Zach Sims still first team All NBA. So even though he wasn't MVP, he's probably the first team All Defense, I'm sure, as well. Kenny Swift is still here. Obviously, Alexi Clayton is here. So that's all really interesting stuff as well. So Clayton is on Minnesota, and they're the second team in the West. And then we have Memphis as the third team in the West. And then obviously the Bucks are still the first team in the East. We'll see who wins the championship this year. Zach Sims gets knocked out by Miami again, but then we have Clayton in the finals with the Timberwolves, and he wins the championship. So Alexi Clayton wins MVP and the championship. So that's really interesting to see there. We could have another star on the rise there. But yeah, here we are at the end of this 9-year span, because I accidentally did 11 years in the last video. Let's take a look at the last 9 years and just as a recap over this one. So here we are, the last 9 MVPs. You see one name on the list dominating, as we've discussed already. But Abe Morris picks up his first and likely only MVP. Darnell Cross gets his first MVP here as well. And Alexi Clayton gets his first of potentially many MVPs. But Zach Sims has been dominating this video in the league so far with 6 MVP awards. The most in this league's history, and the most ties for the most in regular NBA history as well. So that's crazy. Kind of the undisputed best player so far in this league's history. Because he also has 4 championships to back it up. So these are the championship winners in the last 9 seasons. We had the Warriors winning off the bat behind Patrick Starks. He gets 2 in a row. And then we have the Raptors showing up again here. So yeah, going back here, the Raptors won 3 championships in 5 seasons. And then they pick up 2 more a little bit later on. So yeah, I feel like the San Antonio Spurs are a pretty apt example of what they did there. Took a 4-year break and then won 2 more championships. But the Bucks are obviously the best team of this 9-year run, because they had the best player and the most success. So 4 championships, 6 MVPs for Zach Sims. So far, he has been the best player of this simulation in total the last 30 years. So that's really, really cool. But yeah, that's where we're at the end at the start of 2051 season. That's 30 years in the books for this version of the league. So yeah, Zach Sims, the GOAT. We'll see in the next video how his career finishes up, and then if Alexi Clayton is the next one up there as well. So yeah, thanks again for watching. This was a lot of fun to do. I'm gonna finish this out. I'm gonna do all 50 seasons I can. That's the plan here. So this was a lot of fun. Yeah, thanks again for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.